Rugby Dad. Hello, Amy. How are we?
Hey, good. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Sorry, was I interrupting feeding time?
Yeah, basically, you know how important that is.
I know exactly how important it is. I finished mine about 20 minutes ago. What'd you have? What's the go-to meal?
Well, it's not necessarily a go-to, but I had sea bass and greens tonight, so it's nice.
Oh, la-di-da. Sounds pretty decent.
Fresh in the sunshine.
Yeah, nice. Were you barbecuing or were you
It was just in the pan. Yeah, didn't have
nice?
time for the barbecue.
Gutted. So, was that little blackcurrant as well?
Yeah.
Class. So where are you living at the moment then? Are you parents, your own place with a partner, you got your mates or?
No, I'm at my place, so I live here by myself, and then I've been kind of going over to where my parents live, which is like where our family farm is most days, because that's where I've got like a little gym thing that I've built, and yeah, just being able to do some farm work basically, which has been quite nice.
Are we literally talking like sort of hay bale chucking or are we?
Yeah, classic. No, to be fair, the gym's pretty, it's quite like gym-like. So I do have hay bales as my squat rack, which works pretty well.
Oh my God, hold on a minute, hold on. Describe that again. So is it hay bales in your squat rack? It sounds class.
Yeah, so I've got like an Olympic bar and like weights obviously, but yeah, the actual squat rack sits on two big like round bales.
Wow. How big are they? I've always seen them. I am so urban. Sorry, I'm super Southwest London. I don't really like how I'm obviously they're huge, but
Yeah, they'd
really,
stand like just above like waist height. Well, no, they'd be yeah, somewhere
yeah.
rib height.
And what are you? I'm gonna go with 5'10" ish, 5'11.
5'11" and a bit, yeah.
5'11" and a bit.
Yeah, my friends
Okay.
trying to convince me that I'm 6 foot, but I'm holding strong that I'm 5'11" and a bit.
Okay. So you're getting old and shrinking, or are you just too many weights?
Am I getting what? Sorry.
Getting old and shrinking, or too many weights?
No, probably too many weights.
Yeah, nice. Okay, decent. Yeah, look, thank you very much for this. Obviously, just a little bit of insight, really. We've got a really, really growing women's section of our club up to this week where we're just creating a sort of trying to create more of a profile for the younger girls as well because our minis is growing. So thank you for your time. We're going to pretty much just get stuck straight into it, to be honest, because typically in the last sort of 3 or 4 hours of today, loads of stuff's come in from the girls' side of stuff, of all people as well. My mum used to be a chair of Rochdale Park. Yeah, ladies section, very much back in the day. Don't get me wrong, it's not recent as women's game has gone on, but so yeah, stuff's come in. So if you don't mind, we'll pretty much just get stuck into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Quick one, just on the very current topic of this week's mental health. What's the go-to phrase? How sort of into it are you? Are you mindfulness? Are you yoga, that sort of stuff, or are you?
Probably not as much as some people. I do like enjoy a bit of yoga and stuff like that. I definitely see the importance of it, and it's not that it's not something I like or whatever, but it's just been something that I've perhaps been fortunate enough not to need a huge amount of. But I know I've got lots of friends and people in kind of my world that use it quite a lot, and I definitely know the value of it. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth trying if you haven't before, and perhaps it's something that you think might be able to help, because I think a lot of people have found a lot of value in it.
What about things like, I know mental health is the sort of the go-to phrase, but what about things like mental skills? You're obviously more in touch with it than I am, but we try and do our version of it at our school. Again, small school, low level stuff, but mental skills like cliches like perseverance, resilience, but from a mental point of view, how much of practice do you get with things like that in your day to day?
Yeah, we do quite a lot of work on it, to be fair. I think certainly when I first started playing internationally, it was kind of the thing that wasn't kind of used a huge amount, or if you did, it was one of those things that was seen as a bit of a taboo and you were a bit weak or whatever. But that kind of ridiculous stereotype has now gone, and we use it a lot, and it's so valuable. Obviously, you train really hard in the gym and you work really hard out on the field, but often you don't put any kind of graft in with your brain and that side of things, and it's definitely as important. Things like pressure training, things like yeah, as you say, like standing up to to tests and the resilience side of things like that. So it's definitely something we've done increasingly kind of more work on, and definitely find it massively valuable for sure.
Nice. And just purely as an example, can I ask for a small example of, you said that phrase just there, you said about mental pressure and pressure training. So at your level, what would that phrase, pressure training, look like in a practical example? I know we've got, in our listeners, we've got all of the girls team, girls coaches, our female managers, our male managers, male coaches, quite a lot of teenage section as well have tuned in. I've just seen their names pop up. So what does that look like on a practical level?
So we kind of create scenarios within our training. So so I'm a goal kicker. So for example, it might be you'd create scenarios in a session whereby we're, I don't know, 6 points down, we've just scored a try, you need the kick to win, and you've got the whole team watching you. Yes, it's training, but it's still pressure, and obviously you can't ever replicate the complete pressure that a game will bring, the crowd, all of that sort of stuff. But little moments like that when actually kind of your team's depending on you, everybody's watching, it's kind of trying to replicate as best as possible things like that. So we do loads of scenarios. Obviously, that's just one example, but you know, hookers hitting shots, kickers making touch. Just as a team, like I say, we'll be so many points down or up. You might have to close a game out. You might have to try and win one. All of those sorts of things. And also they're kind of broadening your depth of experiences as well. So you know, whether you might be 2 points up and you've got 3 minutes left of a game, you know, kind of how do you close that out? How do you finish that off? If you've never experienced that before in a real life game situation, that kind of gives you that experience, if that makes sense.
What are we talking in terms of? So that sounded more of an individual based thing. So that's quite interesting that you take your position and your position specific skills, and then you try and perform them under pressure. What are we talking? Are we talking about someone, you know, for you, for example, a place kicker? Are you having someone, I don't know, stand there and call you names in your ears? Are we like?
Yeah, so we've had it before where there's like been a line of basically like what would have been the opposition in the team training, and they basically are standing all around you and just essentially shouting whatever they want.
Probably let's keep it PG for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, it just like you don't want, you know, that if you miss that kick, all of those people around you are just going to go in on you. So you obviously really don't want to do that. But it is a sense of pressure. So sometimes more so than games can be, to be fair.
Yeah. Okay. No. Well, I guess they know you personally, so they can get properly stuck into you. They know your dirt. So good. On that note of dirt, I among in doing some basic level research, I don't worry. You look nervous. Don't worry. I wasn't about to like dig something up. It's quite interesting doing some basic level of research. And 5 years ago, you did a brief interview with James Haskell on one of his platforms. He went in. He went on some comments there. What was that like? What was he like? I don't remember it that much.
He's a bit Marmite, isn't he, to a lot of people? But yeah, I've met him quite a few times and done a few bits with him, and he's a good guy. Like he's incredibly opinionated, and he'll definitely say that himself. But at the same time, he's sticking up for a lot of things that he believes in at the moment. I think he's just been I don't know what that word is, patron or ambassador for Restart Rugby and things like that. So he does a hell of a lot of work off the field, and you know, whether you like him or not, you can't help but admire his kind of work ethic to make sure that stuff off the field was sorted for him in terms of when he finished playing, which, you know, as a professional rugby player, is really important and something that we quite often overlook. So yeah, I get on with Haskell. He's a good guy.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, there was no malice in that whatsoever. It was just very interesting, the level. I'm just going to sort of lay it out there. We're not going to go down that line tonight. All good. It's a family show. We've got anyone between the age of sort of 11 and 60 tuned in. So
sounds
all good. So if we get stuck into it, I'll be slightly formal about the introduction. We've got some sponsors to thank you. So if you don't mind, obviously, naturally, our main club sponsors, thank you to Magnus, Belushi's, External Concepts and Park Dean. But more importantly, especially tonight, our chief women's sponsor, Adair, our chartered surveyors and our construction consultants. Thank you to them. They're big, because in the last 18 months, they've obviously thrown us some help. So thanks to them and thanks to you. Formal welcome and thank you to Emily Scarratt. We have, you still at Loughborough? still with Laughter?
Yes.
Any? Yeah. Okay. Nice. And obviously, one of England's most successful players. I don't want to make you blush. I don't want to sort of embarrass you too early on, but just for some listeners and parents and coaches who are tuned in, if there was any doubt, if you don't mind, I will just very quickly, reel off a few things in the last 6-7 years. So massive congratulations, by the way, from, on behalf of my club, huge congratulations to yourself for the following things. You're obviously a highly skilled player, and rewards are top point scorer. I'll start with the bottom. 2014, top point scorer at the World Cup class, brewing forward to 2016, taking Team GB to Rio Olympics. Like, these are all huge topics that need some questioning, but we'll reel them off. The next World Cup, 56 points in one World Cup. There's some sort of mental stats going on. That's crazy. 2018, bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games. Same year, represented England at Sevens World Cup. 2019, awarded World Rugby Women's Player of the Year. Let's come back to that. That's a whole chapter in the book. And 2020, most recently, congratulations, Six Nations, Red Roses, highest ever point scorer. Massive. If there was a crowd here, I'm sure a round of applause would come, but we're all on our own in our houses. So yeah, huge congratulations. Out of those 6-7 ridiculous achievements, pick your finest.
Wow. I suppose you can't ever go too far away from kind of winning the World Cup.
Yeah.
I think, one, you do it as a team, which is part of the reason we play rugby in a team sport. It's awesome. And I guess, it was the culmination of a hell of a lot of hard work and, a couple of failed opportunities for myself and other people who've been kind of part of the squad for a little while. So yeah, that was pretty special.
Wow, so that's up there. Nice. Okay. Well, and obviously since the World Cup, the whole breakdown thing, 2020, since the Six Nations, it's pretty much been an off year, right? How's training going off field? Are you in the park, in the common? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's weird for everybody. So I've been able to build a gym up at my family farm, which is pretty cool, and it's done the rounds on the internet, I think. But that's obviously helped me quite a lot in terms of being able to train relatively as normal in terms of like gym stuff. I know obviously a lot of people, especially people who live in flats and stuff, obviously struggling with equipment and what they're able to do. And then just running sessions as normal, but obviously it doesn't ever replace kind of training with your teammates and.
No, I know what you mean. You can't really compete, can you? You can't just. Yeah.
So motivation like dips and wavers naturally, and I think anyone would be lying if they said it didn't. But we're still getting there, still grinding it out, and ever hopeful that things will return to normal at some point.
Yeah, no, naturally. Whilst we're on gym, I'll take one of the questions that's come in from one of our female players. I'll bring it was a section later, but I'll bring it back to now. Whilst we're on topic of gym, generic question. I apologise. It's kind of statty. Your personal best on deadlift, clean, squat. It's all coming. I follow the script here.
I actually wouldn't know. We don't. We rarely do 1RM stuff.
Okay.
So like when we do fitness testing, we do a lot of isometric tests and different bits and bobs like that. I am not very strong naturally, especially upper body. So you won't get any good numbers out of anything there.
You could have made it up. I was waiting for a big.
Yeah, I could have made it up.
Sort of like, wow, 200 kilos.
I don't want it to come back slightly.
Yeah, you go back in and the S&C guy's like, no,
yeah,
nonsense.
What's happening? Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, all good. Don't worry about that. Thank you very much. I'll come back to that section of questions later. So there is a quick fire round, which usually kicks off the sort of the questions that have come in. It is we got Emma Uren quite good actually. We got her quite good on the last one. She couldn't answer it, so we'll try and not catch you out per se, but just think quickly, whatever comes to your mind, just rattle it off.
Okay.
It's an acronym of old Emanuel, so O to L all the way through.
Okay.
Orange or apple?
Apple.
Lightweight or heavyweight?
Lightweight.
Duck, dive or dodge?
Duck.
England or abroad?
England.
Medals or mates?
Mates.
Amateur or professional?
Professional.
Natural food or supplements?
Natural food.
Under pressure or no pressure?
Under pressure.
Eggs or bacon?
Bacon. You know what?
Oh no, she got thrown off. Go on.
I eat eggs like every day, so it probably should be eggs, but I probably prefer bacon.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Understandable.
Quick
last
fire.
one. Olympics or World Cup?
World Cup.
Nice. Class. Thank you. Yeah, there's always one that catches someone out.
Did she say World Cup?
Sorry?
What did Emma say? Did she say World Cup?
No, different questions for each person. So it was just trying to sort of gauge it. I like that bacon caught you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bacon is up there. If I lost bacon in my life, I'd be sad.
I'm with you on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very much with you. Yeah, all the vegans listening are like, oh no, unlucky. So yeah, if you may, we're just nearly 20 minutes in. If you don't mind, we'll pretty much go from the top. Really, where did it all start? Take us back. There are some people obviously who may not have seen your early year stuff and some earlier, some current teenage female, male and female players. So try and take us back to where it all started for you and your first club.
So I first started playing when I was 5. So my brother is 3 years older than me. I went along when Dad took him, basically. Just stood on the sideline. One of the coaches said, "Well, you're here. Do you fancy like a run around?" So just went and had a run around, and then apparently we just loved it and was like, "Dad, can I go back?" So that's kind of how it started. That was at Leicester Forest East in Leicestershire. Yeah, as I say, he was quite young. Obviously, he was playing with the boys. He was the only girl as part of the boys' team pretty much right through until under 12s. There was a couple of girls in the different age groups around me, but not necessarily my team. Then when I was 12, I had to join a girls' team. Luckily, one had just kind of relocated to my club, and it was a bit of an amalgamation of a few, which quite often happens. So then played girls rugby, but as a 13-year-old, I went straight into under 18s rugby because that's what it was back then. Now, obviously, there's kind of incremental stages, and it's a lot better, basically. But yeah, so that was quite daunting as a 12, 13-year-old playing against some 17, 18-year-olds. And then yeah, just kind of played for club, then went through like some of the county stuff, some of the regional stuff, and kind of through all of those processes, you get picked up for the next stage or the next stage. And yeah, basically got called into some performance camps and then asked to trial for what was England under 19s back then when I was 16. Got into that, played a season of under 19s, played a season of under 20s, and then when I was 18, basically got called up to senior rugby and got capped. So it all went super fast, was mad, didn't really have time to kind of like sit back and look at what had happened or what could happen, kind of set goals, anything like that, which, you know, quite a lot of people always say, "Oh, I really always wanted to play for England." I can't really say that because things just kept happening. But yeah, and then here we are. 10 years.
Yeah, just purely out of interest, again, for the listeners involved, how old are you now? Just some timeline of where that was.
Yeah, so I'm 30, so that was 12 years ago, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I'm only asking just because, yeah, I think we're the same age, and women's rugby was, you know, the last 12 years has, Jesus, come on, 5-fold, 10-fold. And just wondering out of interest, was it that phone call, Gary Street? Was that Gary Street by any chance? So yeah. He's obviously still very much involved in your life. So for those that don't know, huge shout out to Gary Street, who actually organised this link. So thank you to you. He actually said he might listen tonight and have a little watch. So yeah, thanks to him. But yeah, Gary Street involved for those 12 years. That must be huge mentor of yours.
Yeah, so I played in the 90s and in the 20s, obviously with different coaches. And then, like I say, Streety rang me. I was an 18-year-old. I'd just come back from our under-20s tour, and he was like, "We want to call you up to what was then like the Nations Cup, which was like the summer series of games." And I remember I was actually on holiday, so I was on my post A-level first holiday away with my friends.
A couple of lemonades, was it? Okay.
A couple of lemonades down. Yeah, so that was obviously quite interesting. And the holiday had to take a slightly different turn for me post that than perhaps it did for my friends. But
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. But yeah, that was amazing. And then Streety coached me from then, which was 2008 until 2014. So yeah, a hell of a lot to thank him for, definitely.
Oh, class. So then that was straight into 15s, was it? That was into 15-a-side rugby, formal, full code rugby.
Yeah, so that was 15.
How many years later was then the sevens transition? Because you kind of, well, I mean, you've obviously not. It's like you're obviously doing it because you're good enough to do it, but so it's not dipping in, dipping out because you're not good enough. It's kind of you're too good for both codes. But when did that transition between the two start for you?
Yeah, so I think it was 2012. So the Sevens World Cup was 2013. So we
making you, what was that, 7 years? So yeah, you were 23. Yeah.
23. Yeah. So I'd played in the 15s World Cup in 2010. Had another season, 15s, 2011. Then played a lot of sevens in 2012 and 2013, heading into the Sevens World Cup in 2013. Then went back to 15s for the 2014 15s World Cup. Then 2015, you have to stay with this. 2015 went back to sevens because we were then trying to qualify for the Olympic Games, which was
in Rio the next year. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so Rio the next year. So then played sevens all of 2016. Then went back to 15s in 2017 because it was again the World Cup year, and then went back after 2017 because it was Commonwealth Games and the Sevens World Cup again in 2018. And then basically for the first time, we had both codes professionally contracted, which was Christmas of 2018. And that was basically the first time that we genuinely had a choice. So you had a choice the whole way, if you really didn't want to play one or the other, but there was always a focus. So if, your sevens coach wanted you and the 15s coach, whoever had priority that year based on World Cups, Olympics, whatever, basically you could have whoever they wanted, and we just constantly flipped. There was probably about 7 or 8 of us that just constantly flipped between the two for a long time. And then, as I say, that Christmas, both codes were professionally contracted, and then essentially it was the first time you actually got to pick which one you wanted to play if they both wanted you. And at that point, I then came back to 15s. It was a tough decision, but yeah, I wanted to play in World Cup.
Talking of which, Gary Street has just signed in. I've just seen his name pop up and he says hi both. So hi back to you.
Hey Streety.
Streety, the inspiration, nice. Yeah, so him and I work at Quinn's on some DPP stuff, but you guys going back all those years. That's good to know. Yeah. Just off the back of that, because that does actually segue nicely into the next section. But off the back of that, my personal opinion as a transitioning into a coaching life, and I know many would agree at my level, but we're not performance-based people. I'll ask you a question purely off the back of what you just said. How much do you agree or disagree with? Because you personally, and that chunk of 8 players?
Yeah, roughly.
You've done so much flipping and flapping between the two different codes, and a couple of guys done it as well. I don't think Lindsay Haig came from 15s, went to 7s, back again, and then Callum Watson as well. And how much do you agree or disagree with the phrase of essentially rugby is catch, run, pass, tackle, kick, but just obviously within different formats? Is that, now that sport has gone so professional and so sports science and everything, sports analysis, is that still applicable at top end? Or do you think it's now gone too pro for that?
I think it's really hard at top end. Obviously, as you say, I think sevens was used really well back in the day as like this development tool, because as you say, all your skills are exposed. All the skills are the same in any form of rugby, but they're really exposed in sevens. So it's a brilliant way of kind of challenging them and stretching the skill set of players. But yeah, I think at the moment it's really hard, and I think that's something certainly that I found and was part of the decision as to why I wanted to come back to 15s, was that constantly chopping and changing between the two made it really hard to kind of get back into the groove of one. I'm not saying that they're totally different games, but fundamentally they are within the same skill set, if that even makes sense. And it is difficult to do that. And some people do it and some people manage it. I think fundamentally for me, I was a 15s player trying to play sevens.
Oh, right. So you were running out of big lines and smashing things, and everyone was thinking, hold on a minute. All around.
I'm going to give myself a little more finesse than that, but essentially, yeah, like I'm not, I'm not kind of fleet of foot. I'm not, you know, that person that's going to traditionally look like a sevens player jumping around people. So, and I think, especially in the women's game, we've seen that change, and we've seen specialist female sevens players. Whereas before, there just wasn't the number of kind of girls playing to be able to separate them. It was like, right, well, here's our England women's rugby lot. They'll do this, and then they'll do this, and I suppose it's a bit old school, but we've definitely come a long way since then.
Was it anything to do with the grueling fitness tests in sevens?
Yeah, I just basically didn't fancy it.
Yeah, you were like, well, that S&C guy's a bit keen. No, screw that.
Yeah, that is the other big thing. Sevens is, and becoming incredibly more so, like well, they're just athletes, and you have to be of a level of fitness which, in my experience, however fit you got, you were still never fit for sevens, because you just push yourself harder and you'd still feel the same level of fatigue, but you'd probably be, your output was greater. But yeah, it's one of the most brutal games I've ever played. But yeah, the fitness level, the fitness requirements are very different. But that's not to say that 15s players aren't fit either.
I like that. I think you backed up Gary Street as well. He just jumped on that. He said she's too modest. She's world class at both, although definitely better at 15s.
There you go.
Nice. Are you playing him tenors? You playing him tenors for the, yeah. Gary, jump on it. Thank you very much. Just really quickly, so yeah, that was segueing quite nicely onto the teaching thing. You, if I'm right or wrong, please tell me, but you were teaching for 4 or 5 years, and I can safely assume that's not still a thing, or are you still showing some interest right now in a quiet time or post-career looking at teaching, coaching?
Yeah, like post-career, might come back to it. But yeah, so basically I went to university, and then straight out of uni I got a job at King Edward School in Birmingham. Worked there for 2 or 3 years, I think it was, and obviously did a lot with their rugby. So it was an all-boys school, so it was heavily kind of rugby-based in the certainly the first 2 terms in the afternoons. And then basically 2014, after 2014, we then got offered our first professional contracts, which were then for sevens and the whole Olympic build-up. But and basically since then, I've been really fortunate to have kind of kept a contract and been professional ever since. So yeah, not done any teaching since then. Kind of professional life is too kind of busy, well, busy and chilled all at the same time. But you know what I mean? It's quite hard to do both. So yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. And on that same level, a lot came in because you're one of those pin-ups. Sorry to make you blush or anything, but yeah, you are now. You know, admit it. You know, you are a pin-up, and your story from where you came from, where you are now, is obviously very inspiring. Was there a particular PE teacher or coach or you know, pin-up at school that took you there, or was it more a case of go to a club, build up your hours of experience, and then I guess it will sort itself out? What was the spectrum?
I think I kind of mentioned it earlier. I never kind of grew up wanting to kind of play for England or I didn't have huge aspirations. I just knew that I loved it.
Okay.
And therefore I wanted to, you know, if I was playing club rugby and the next step was county, then yeah, of course I wanted to play county because it meant I was still playing rugby. And I think I was probably quite fortunate that I loved all sports, kind of was able to play lots and just got stuck in with everything. But back then the England team wasn't visible, you know, it wasn't on TV, it wasn't in newspapers, it wasn't, you know, Instagram, social media, it wasn't a thing. So you'd have to really go and search for it to find it. But once I was on some form of kind of pathway with it, probably kind of 14, 15, 16 kind of years old, a guy called Andy Payton, worked really closely with him. So he was like a coach within the RFUW, as it was back then. And basically he would come into my school, we'd work on basically various aspects of kicking and passing, just individual skills basically. But he was probably the first guy that made me realise, one, what it took to go on and you know, try and be one of those players, because he also knew a lot of the girls in the England team. And he
from a skills point of view, so I jump in. So I guess you were working out how good your individual skills need to be to get there. Is that what you're saying, or
Yeah, exactly right. That. So I was quite fortunate that, you know, I was reasonably naturally talented at at basic things. So, you know, it wasn't that I had to learn how to pass or anything like that, but it was, like you say, yeah, it's the next step. So it was, I remember him saying something to me about Rachel Burford, who obviously, something about how far she could pass the ball. And obviously I couldn't pass the ball that far, but I also had no idea that other people could. So I suppose he was the first guy that really challenged what I had and kind of made me potentially realise what potential I had, and therefore to really kind of push on. Okay. So I owe him quite a lot, to be fair.
Oh, nice. Okay, he's still mates now, still in touch, I guess.
Yeah, we still catch up every now and again. He also made me work really hard as well. That from like a fitness point of view, I don't think I hadn't understood that bit either yet. As like this young kid who just wanted to run around and stuff, it was boom, which is good.
What were your other sports then? What were you sort of athletics, sort of swimming, tennis, hockey, cricket? What were your things?
Yeah, so I played a lot of basketball, netball, tennis. Played a bit of rounders. I was just that sporty kid, like any school team. It was like, right, well, scazzle play type thing. So it was, and I loved it. And I think it's really, really valuable. It's certainly valuable for me growing up, but for all young kids growing up, just gives you that breadth of kind of skill fitness, things, just like team sports, individual sports, everything's different. And just to kind of get, as I say, a broad kind of spectrum of things in, I think is really valuable.
Class, thank you. Yeah, I guess that's a nice message for our players. Thank you very much. So that's the role of the PE teacher. In terms of, so for you, obviously the game. This is a question that's come in from our girls. That's come in about the previous 10, 12 years have been fantastic, but the next 3 to 5 year chapter especially for women's rugby. Where do you feel the next kind of pool is going to come from? Do you think it's going to be hammering schools to open that up as a channel, or do you think it's going to be allow schools to be a multi-sports approach, and then for women's rugby at top end to push club for girls?
I think it's a really interesting one. I think certainly traditionally back in the day, a lot of girls would pick up rugby at university because that was probably the first exposure. If they didn't have like an older brother or didn't kind of go to a minis and juniors bit, then they'd play at university. Whereas obviously now club rugby has become a lot better. And I think schools can have a huge role to play, but traditionally you can't get the numbers, or you've got 2 or 3 keen girls and they can't rope their friends into play, and then you can't find other schools to play if you do have a team. So I think there's a huge area to explore there. But as you say, you're in quite a competitive market where they're already playing netball, hockey, football, you know, all those other sports. So I think it's a really difficult one. I don't have the answers to it, but I would just encourage schools to be kind of open to ideas and open to things like that. I think I never did rugby at school, not even, you know, in a random PE lesson. I never did it. So I think if you can expose girls to rugby, even if it's touch or tag, just in, you know, a couple of PE lessons, even throughout the year, I think that can be really valuable, because quite often I haven't come across many girls that try it for the first time and hate it. And I think that's
a good point. Yeah, fair point. And I guess that, like you said, that multi-sport, if you had a taste for it and you like the format of the game, other games are going to help the skill acquisition. So I guess it's still that multi-sports approach, even up to the age of, you know, 16, 18, and then you can decide later, or is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%.
Cool, thank you. Yes, on that, there are quite a few things came in about that exact section you were just talking about, that section of that age bracket between kind of 18 and 22. And actually, quite interestingly, Alex Donbrand a couple of weeks ago touched on it as well, because he's come from a different angle. He was laughing about the fact that the university angle, naturally, you know, Cardiff Met is quite a social scene, but also you come out with a bit of a parachute, and you know the benefits of going that way, and university sport is going through the roof in the last 10 years, especially from that side of things. But lots did come in, and an old girl mate of mine she's around about our age as well. She was the Nottingham University women's captain.
Yep.
She's about 2 years younger than us, and she was also the SU president, and she had quite a lot to do with participation. And she came in with some questions just about increasing players at those ages. So do you feel like there's more to be done at university women's rugby bracket?
I think there's more to be done at every bracket, if I'm totally honest with you.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, fair point.
So I think we're at a, you know, we've come such a long way, as you said, and you know there's so many things that are kind of tenfold better than they've ever been. But I think we also need to keep pushing because the appetite is there at the moment, and that's awesome. So yeah, university, club, schools, whatever it is, you know, women, it really doesn't matter. I think there's so many great things, and this will sound like cheesy and straight off the RFU handbook, but there's so many great things that rugby can give to people, whether it is, you know, you've got aspirations to play for England, or whether it's just, you know, health reasons, staying fit, a new challenge, making new friends. Like there's so many things that rugby can offer. But yeah, I think the push is definitely real, and I think you've got to keep things going.
Okay. You know, I'm also coming at it from an angle of like which other sports we can plug from as well, because when she played 3 years at university, loved it, captained it, all the social stuff. Naturally, it was much more amateur than where you are now, but loved all that stuff. But then when she became that president, she was trying, we're going back a good kind of, yeah, 8 years or so, but she was trying to open up their minds and the board of people above her to tapping into other sports. What's your opinion, if any, a bit like the sort of Carlin Isles, the Perry Breaker stories of tapping into the athletics world for a pool of players?
Yeah, I think sevens is probably tapped into that more than 15s.
Yeah.
You see that a lot, especially from athletes and sprinters, because speed is kind of second to none in a game of sevens, as long as you can catch. So that, I think, definitely we've seen that. We've seen a lot of kind of crossover from like netballers and stuff like that, especially over in New Zealand, some of those guys. Yeah, I think there's a role to play from all sports. As I say, if you're team sport minded and you've got kind of basic coordination skills and basic you know, being able to read games and stuff like that. Like, let's be honest, rugby isn't the easiest game to pick up. If you have no idea how to play rugby, it can be quite tricky to pick up. So that's why I guess I'd be keen to keep encouraging people to start as young as possible. Because we've all sat watching a rugby game with that auntie or someone who doesn't understand rugby, and they literally haven't got a clue what's going on. So
does your head in, I know what you mean.
Yeah, the younger you start with that, then I think the better.
Cool. Okay. So on that exact note, my like I mentioned earlier, my by the way, sorry, someone just jumped on it for sort of third or fourth time. I'll give her a shout out. She's been persistent. Phoebe Foskett, she's loving you. She's living the dream. She said, please can you tell Emily, she's a huge inspiration. She asked earlier about giving me a shout out, etc., etc. So Phoebe Foskett, Emily Scarratt will say hello.
Hey Phoebe.
Yeah, there it is. I'm sure she'll start. Thank you very much. She's really sweet. As I said earlier, we'll keep it in the family community club. My mum has an ex-chair of Rochdale Park Women's. We're going back a good, 12, sort of 15 or so years. She was looking at things like outreach. At the time, there was a fly half in particular, which names actually escape me, but she was asking about what you guys do now, because way back in the day, it was women's rugby was on the up, but they were the everyday person, whereas yourself, like I said earlier, as a pin-up. What sort of outreach are you doing now that your profile is more powerful?
Yeah, we like through the RFU and stuff. We have a few schemes that they run. We've got some, like we call them red roses, ambassadorial visits and stuff like that. And I think all the girls see the value in that, and we support them as much as possible. It's really important. As I said earlier, like I didn't know who the England women's team was when I was growing up. So how was I supposed to even think about aspiring to be something that I couldn't see? So it's really important that we're as visible as possible. One, if people want to try and become us, or two, if they just want to come and support us, because obviously that's also great for the game. But it's really important that we're visible. But obviously it comes with its own challenges around obviously our own schedules and things like that. But it's something that we're trying really hard to kind of keep driving within our own regions, because that's a lot easier. And certainly throughout the country as well. There's lots of activations going on in schools, in clubs, in blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it's something that a lot of us are quite passionate about to continue to grow the game.
So what, you're turning up to sort of like a bit like ours in a sort of sense of, community clubs, to turning up and being part of, just being seen for a couple of hours and saying hello, and like you said, maybe I guess is showing the 10, 12, 14-year-olds plus that we can be seen. We are, you know, we are there and we're tangible, as well as the fact that on social media and on TV we're pro. So there's a little plug there for I think we've got a club day booked in for late August. If you're around in late August and things haven't gone back to being too mental, we can come down for 5 minutes, would be great. So transitional question from back in the day, as coming from our female team, we have: to what extent do you still encounter the old school attitude? You were part of a hilarious clip on YouTube. You were with Mo. What's her actual name? So is it Hunter? Natasha, yeah, sorry. So just for some listeners who haven't seen that clip, some context to this conversation. I'll list out some ridiculous questions that you guys said you had been given. I don't know who they're from, that doesn't particularly matter, but you've been given: are you allowed to tackle? This is all in the context of you're a female player. And you related it because you have boobs, apparently. They ask you that? Is that even true?
Yeah.
People genuinely have asked you that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's
more than once.
Wow. Apparently, yeah, you said on that one, you mentioned something about being asked about padding. Do you wear particular padding for it? And then Natasha Hunt just went, no, just learn to tackle. It's not complicated. Yeah. I love that. Love that response.
Funny coming from her, because tackling is not her favourite thing, let me tell you.
Oh, is that a bit rich from her, is it? Look at you getting stuck in. I like that. Another context again for these questions. Jesus, awful. Do people pull your hair? It's just like, yeah, madness. And then again, Natasha Hunt stuck into a story about pulling the French scrum half's ponytail at one stage. Were you there in that game, were you?
Yeah, it wasn't ideal, but yeah, guys have long hair too. Like, it's just one of those things.
How did that all unfold in that game?
I can't remember. I think it was a sevens game, but it's really funny. There was obviously a really well-timed photograph taken just at the point of Mo holding on to the very end of her ponytail, and her ponytail kind of at full stretch. Wow. And that then before every season we have to do like a laws module, a concussion module, and an anti-doping module. And as one of the laws, that photo features basically saying you can't pull hair.
And she's in it, and she's in the presentation, just like, oh no.
Live now.
That's class. Have you ever had your hair pulled? Have you ever like someone like?
Probably, but not kind of.
Nice. Our female club captain jumped on a question here. It's quite hard to read in the background. So kind with the Mitsubishi Volunteers program. Oh, there you are. Remember that in February?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So she's just saying a big thank you. She said you took loads of time to chat with us, and all the Six Nations Red Roses squad are all heroes. Thank you, Scouts, from our ladies captain. Hopefully you'll see her again at the club day.
Yeah.
That good. So yeah, so on that note as well, I mean, one of the most ridiculous questions for those guys and girls that haven't seen that ridiculousness. Someone asked you and Mo, do you play on a full-size pitch with a full-size ball? I mean, you're not throwing punches at this stage. You're not sort of wind you up.
You go through stages of it, and certainly probably when I was younger, like it annoys you, it winds you up. It's just people being. You say it's people being ignorant, but sometimes they genuinely don't think they are being ignorant, and they're trying to take an interest, but without having a clue. But we come across it so often. Like, you'll go to events and you're dressed not in sports kit, and it's generally the older boys of clubs, if I can say that, it's fine.
I know who you mean. The sort of 50, 60 plus ex-player,
the council members, and that sort of era, where obviously women's rugby wasn't prevalent in their time. So I understand it, but at the same time, like, times change, things move on. I don't get caught up in it. It's not something that bothers me. It bothers some of the girls, but you always get asked, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a rugby player. Oh, you don't look like a rugby player. And it's like, well, what does a rugby player look like? Because
God, really? Wow.
To me, a rugby player can look like anything, and do you know what I mean? And it's frustrating, but at the same time, we've got to stay positive and try and represent ourselves and our sport really well, because as I keep saying, we're at quite a pivotal point in women's rugby, I believe, and we've got to keep spreading the positive message.
Cool, nice, thank you. On that, the same person's actually asked about do you still face it? The question was, to what extent do you still encounter the old school attitudes? So are you still facing that now? I guess you're here and there, but like you say, just stay positive.
Becoming less and less, if I'm honest with you, which is brilliant, and obviously showing the reach that it now has. When our sport is being put on TV and it's being reported in the news and it's on social media and stuff, and then people see it and therefore they kind of respect it more. There's so many people that have spoken to me or messaged me and said, I've never seen a women's rugby game before. I stayed behind at Twickenham or whatever it was and watched, and it was brilliant. And you don't get many people that kind of say, I stayed behind and it was rubbish. So that people kind of, if you're a rugby fan and you understand rugby and you can appreciate rugby, then generally you'll appreciate women's rugby, because it's the same. Women are playing it. Things, we don't run as fast and perhaps don't hit as hard, but it's all relative to the people that we're playing against.
Nice. On that same note, there must be, is there much dialogue between the men's and women's games, either at club or international? Or do you, obviously, Streety's been a massive part of the game and your game, but is there much dialogue in terms of coaching delivery and input and emphasis, that sort of stuff? Do you chat to the England guys and vice versa, or is it very much we're independent?
It's probably more independent as 15s, because we're on totally different schedules. I think within clubs it is more so. Obviously Loughborough, our men's side, is a university side, so it's perhaps a bit different, but I know like the guys at Quins and Sarries and stuff, obviously they have more contact with kind of their boys. But when I was part of the Sevens programme, that's pretty much in conjunction. They both train and play largely at the same places throughout the calendar year. And that's really cool, like just like you say, sharing experiences, sharing knowledge, asking questions, just being able to tap into kind of other sources of information is really important.
Easy as, thank you very much. I am just going to rattle off. Look at the clock. We've got about 10 or so minutes to go in the last few. So our ladies team have just fired them all in. So I'll go 5 or 6, just quick fire if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
There are obviously some guesses for this. I'm not going to possibly comment. But which country has given you the biggest crowds to play in front of? And first question is first. Which biggest crowd?
France.
That probably rivals the next question. It's going to be the biggest rivalry in your current generation of England games.
Yeah, France would be up there, but I'd probably say New Zealand.
Okay, yeah. Is that a cultural thing, do you reckon? So off the back of loads of years of just dominating, or is that?
I think it's probably stemmed from us just meeting in World Cup finals a lot, and generally them winning, which is obviously upsetting. But yeah, I think traditionally we didn't used to play them particularly often. It's not just like hopping over the channel to play France. It's obviously a big commitment to go and play New Zealand. So I think yes, and they're tense. I think as well, normally 1 and 2 in the world, so naturally that brings its own rivalry. But yeah.
And same sort of topic. Best player you played against? Okay, maybe one of the top 3. Not necessarily order, maybe just shout out top 3.
I'll go non-English. Say someone like Kelly Brazier. So she plays like 10, 12 for 15. She also plays sevens. Just a really talented all-round footballer.
Nice. Okay. And again, like you said earlier, you said there isn't, maybe, especially at very, very top end, there isn't actually nowadays, 2020 women's rugby, there isn't really that much crossover now, because most people have specified 15 or 7s, but people are the Aussie, to go with non-English, the Aussie player, is it Elia Green?
Elia Green, yeah.
People like herself, have you ever played against her? You must have done at Rio and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ran me a few times.
Don't be humble. You guys do pretty well.
No, she's rapid. She's come from an athletics background. She's fast.
Oh, really? Is that an example of where? Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Cool. That's top 2. No denying that you are obviously, you work hard in the gym. You are very, very also blessed. I'm sure like you said earlier, you were very sporty as a kid and everything else. Would you prefer So if you were to go back in and do the outreach situation, you go and see a girls' training session, what catches your eye, skill or speed? If you had to choose.
Skill, always.
Nice. Yeah, well, I guess if you can't catch it, you can't catch it, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I always, I think like, yeah, I think it's harder to do it the other way around. Obviously, if you're not fast, you're not fast. But that's the joy of rugby, is that you can find a position where you don't need to be rapid. But skills are like, yeah, they're just more fun, aren't they? Everyone watches a skill challenge. People don't watch people race each other as much. It's all about skills.
Nice. What's your biggest? All right. On that note, when's your biggest on a backdoor Sonny Bill moment? You're proudest. Let's go with proud first and embarrassing later. What's your?
I don't know.
I can't believe it came off moment. You're like, oh my god, it actually worked.
The thing is, they often only come about in training, so therefore you can't ever really kind of brag about them.
Okay. So, is that because you feel like you can do it in training, or because?
Yeah. Well, there's less, going back to earlier, there's less pressure in training, I suppose, isn't there?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you're right.
Doesn't matter if it drops on the floor. It matters if it drops on the floor in front of 20,000 people.
World Cup final, we'll try the old Sonny Bill. Oh, shit. Nice. In the last one that's come in, what is, obviously you've been pro for, so many years now. You mentioned earlier, first time you put on your jersey, huge moment. With all due respect, it's been a long time. Hey, I'm being kind. But being a pro for so long, the game's changed. Even as a pro, it's changed. Okay, granted, if you were in the era of heavily amateur 25 years ago and you're still playing, that's a different perspective. But pro for 12 years is a hugely proud achievement. And the question is, what's the biggest change at pro level in your career? For now.
Probably just like the resources. So obviously like where we train, the bases, the support we get, psych, S&C, physios, doctors, soft tissue, just the wider support, I guess. Because for a it's always been good, but I guess it's like, whereas those staff members were perhaps does make a massive difference.
Okay, I guess the answer really is just an all-round picture. All of the background stuff, like you said, the sports psych, the science. Yeah.
Kit is a massive one. We used to wear some dreadful kit. It was
yes, best
oversized. Yeah, whereas now kit is so much nicer.
You must still get pretty excited about the new stash, adding that stuff coming in, and yeah.
I love stash is and always will be king.
I'm so glad you said that, because everyone says, "Oh, that was the thing back in the day. Don't worry about it." No. Whether you're a guy, a girl, you're 30 or 13, it doesn't matter. Kit's kit, and class. Thank you. Yeah. Big shout out VX3, new club sponsor. Little plug. We've got someone here. If you don't mind, just give us a shout out to Rob Taylor's jumped on it for his really sweet shout out. To be fair, his daughter is at Lichfield in the under 10s, and he just said, "Can you shout out? Just say hello to his daughter, Daisy Taylor, who is asked. She's apparently going to be a bit of a tough time from some boys at under 10. So if you could just say hello to Daisy Taylor at Lichfield under 10s, would be great.
Hi Daisy, great to hear you're playing at Lichfield. I'm sorry the boys are giving you a hard time. Stick with it, and they'll soon realise that as they grow up that rugby is a sport for everybody. So stick with it. I'm sure you'll be playing with the girls team before long. So I hope it all goes well.
There you are, Daisy. Thank you very much. That's really sweet, Emily. Thank you.
No
just the last couple, if you don't mind, and it is, how do you think a club like ours, so to bring it to the full circle, from your perspective as a pro, a club like ours, very much in the community, just a sort of context for you, sorry, so our girls and boys are mostly sort of 90+% of our club is schools non-private schools that don't really give them those stereotypical opportunities of, 2 games a week, 4 training sessions, a gym and a great lunch. They're mostly at good schools, but state schools that don't give them the opportunities. So how do you think we could best support the girls, between girls from minis to youth, to actually carrying on? We've got a great youth section, numbers and everything else, but it's tough gig between 14 and 20.
Yeah, it's really tough. I think, you know, just making sure it's a positive and fun place to be, and kind of all the right messages are being spread. You know, that is the most prevalent dropout, isn't it, for especially females as they go through in sport. I think, yeah, as I say, just creating a positive environment, making sure that they're enjoying what they're doing, making sure that, you know, they see it as fun. And then I think we have, and, you know, not just women's rugby players, women sports people all around, we've got a really positive, a really important, like job to do in terms of making sure that people can see us, making sure that people understand that looking athletic or being sporty, having a red face and sweating is actually, you know, a really good thing. There's such a often such a negative kind of connotation with that as you're growing up. But yeah, I think, you know, sporty is definitely cool.
That is one hell of a soundbite. Thank you thank you very, very much. Honestly, I've loved it, and hopefully, like I said earlier, it was a shameless plug. But if we, you know, if we can chat maybe through Streety or directly just about the club day, because I guess, like you say, it's days like big club days where people can meet players like yourself, you know, male, female, young or old, but players like yourself come down and inspire. That would be fantastic. Massive thanks to you. Big shout out to Gary Street, and obviously our main women's club sponsor, Adair. So thank you very much, and hopefully I'll speak soon, Emily.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Cheers.